right, so in Adobe Animate today, we are going to talk about the bone tool. And the bone tool can be used for something besides a stick figure structure. Obviously, an experienced animator would probably use it on a better looking character. The character would not necessarily have to be a person. It could be an animal. It could even probably be a pencil that bends in the middle. Okay, but we are going to use a stick figure as our example today of how the bone tool functions. So this was my example that I did earlier today, so I will just show you, and this is kind of what we're going to be walking through to create. All right, so I'm not going to be specific about how your character has to function, but your character should have an armature, which you will learn about. It should have a bone structure, and it should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different poses that it is going to go through. So to do this activity, we are going to start with a new document. It is going to be an action script 3. It is going to be a frame rate of 30, and it's going to be your 1280 by 720, the default in Animate. And we'll start by zooming out our stage 50%. Now, when we start making the character, we need to think about the tools that we are going to use to make our character. And actually, I'm going to be honest, I did it 3 times, and I'm like, I don't understand why it's not working, and I had to double check what I was doing. So, and I knew that you can't use the bone tool when you have a stroke applied. The bone tool only works with a fill. So we won't be using the shape tool. I was going to use the classic brush, and there is a difference between the fluid brush and the classic brush. So we are going to be using the classic brush, but when we look under our properties, you'll notice you don't see a stroke. Even if I have this stroke turned on to a color, you don't see a stroke appearing over here. So I was just using the tool thinking I was okay. You actually have to go down here to the stroke color over here and change this to no stroke prior to drawing your stick figure. Prior to drawing your stick figure. You can adjust your brush size here. So I'm going to leave my brush size kind of large to do the head. Then I'm going to make my brush size smaller and do a basic body structure. And you guys can feel free to do this. Make sure your stroke is off. Because I have to make sure my bone tool does function, that I've walked through this correctly. Yes. You are not. You are using the classic. Very important. So I'm going to pause it at this point to answer questions in the classroom. You are using the classic brush, and you are simply drawing a stick figure, nothing crazy or elaborate, but make sure the stroke is turned off. All right, so in the next piece of instruction, we are going to be adding the bone tool to our toolbar. So at the bottom of your toolbar, do you have 3 dots? When you open up those 3 dots, do you have a tool that looks like a bone? Not the bind tool that's a bone with an arc, just the bone. Do you see that? Can you take that tool and drag it to your toolbar, please? Then you should be able to close those tools, and you should have a bone tool. Questions on that? Does that work okay? All right, so once you have this bone tool, and just watch for a second, and then you will have time to work, you're going to click and click drag, and you're going to come up midway because we want them to be able to bend at the waist, and then click drag. I screwed something up. Bone tool, click, click drag, click drag. We want this guy to have a little bit of an elbow, and then out to the hand. And then we're going to come and give him a knee. And out into the foot. And up to the top of the head. So you'll see each time I start and stop, let me zoom in so you guys can see this easier maybe. Do you see my points here? Okay, they're by no means perfectly placed. But if I wanted to come back and add an additional one, you have to click right on it. Click drag. It won't let me because there's no pieces out there. But you have to be very precise that you're clicking right back on that point. And you should only ever have a single armature. If you look down and you have multiples down here, you started a second armature. We need all of these bones connected. Okay? Give the bone tool a try. If you have questions, I'll come help you. And you will see when you click off of the tool that your bones aren't there anymore, and that's okay. All right, now that we have bones in our character, we are going to start to move our character around. So we are going to start by coming out to frame 60. Oh, is it going to be contrary? Why? Sometimes my screen recording screws me up. Can I right click? Ah, there we go. So I'm going to right click and insert frame. So right now I just have the same character the whole way. Nothing is changing. I am going to come to frame 10 and I am going to right click and I am going to insert a pose. And then I am going to use my selection tool and I can move my character in whatever way that may or may not be. Then I'm going to come to frame 20 and I am going to insert another pose and I am going to change the character again. Frame 30, insert pose, change it again. Insert pose. I should make my character do a cartwheel. I like cartwheels. Frame 50. Insert pose. Not sure what my character's doing at this point. It's a little out of whack. That's okay. We are only learning about it. At frame 60, insert pose. Oh my. I think my character's just going to crumble itself at the bottom. And when we play that back, that's what we have going on. And that's the bone tool. I'm going to pause it and I'll help some students and then I'll talk about how we're going to take this to the next step. All right, so I'm going to talk about how we're going to submit this project, and we have plenty of time, so we don't have to rush through submitting it. We have a few other things we're going to work on then. Just one screenshot. One screenshot that you need to take, and that screenshot, I need to be able to see the bone structure as well as your timeline. So a screenshot similar to what you see here that you're going to put on your slides. You can go ahead and do that, and then we're going to talk about how we're going to export. All right, so we're going to talk about exporting this character. Now, this may be a little different on the PCs versus the Mac. Some of you are struggling to be able to export an MP4 or that H.264 file. It's not that on your computer you're saving it wrong or exporting it wrong. I've watched you do it. It's just the way it's coming up on your computer. And I'm not going to say that this is the best way, but I believe this is what we need to do. When we go to File, Export Video Media, we're choosing the H.264. We're renaming our file. Please don't be turning in something called Untitled. Ideally, you should be saving it. This could be bone tool _ your last name. When you hit export, and it seems it doesn't matter if we have a check mark in Start Adobe Media Encoder, Render Queue immediately or not, but we're going to go ahead and put a check mark in there. Now, those of you that are using PCs, I'm not sure that you have to do this step. I don't think I've had difficulty with PC files. I'm only having some difficulty with Mac files. But when I have a check mark here and I hit export, you can see my computer's still thinking. And down in my, is it going to prove me wrong this time? It should have started the media encoder, and it didn't. Oh, now it did. Good. So on the Macs, your media encoder should be starting. And it may be starting on the PCs too. It's fine if it is. Because we have that box checked, I think it's always going to start. And we don't have to do much extra work. All we need to do is in this media encoder, there should be a play symbol kind of towards the top right, and you can hit Start Queue. Now, something does not seem correct on mine. Oh, yeah, so mine is saying it's done. It's already encoded. But on the Macs, I feel like you guys do have to hit the play over here to get it to work. Okay, good. So I verified a student in the classroom that's working on a Mac. You had to push this play button, right? He pushed the play button, and now it's saying it's done. Now when you go into your folder structure, can you see it as a movie file? Check in. So on the Mac, you'd be going into your Finder. All right, so good. Students that are using Macs are reported now back that they are seeing this MP4 movie file. So again, this MP4 movie file, we now need to go to Google Drive, New, File Upload, and you're uploading that to your Google Drive so that you can then insert it into your slides. And this is the same slide where you're also putting your screenshot. So your video should be the second slide. Your screenshot should be the first slide. I'm not looking for your video to be a separate file in there, okay? 2 slides are being used. You're submitting 1 file. Does that make sense? All right, so I didn't record a couple pieces that we went over in class, but we talked about making our animation, saving it as a GIF instead of as an MP4. And the reason we were talking about that is so that when we drop it on our slide, it automatically plays, that we don't have to hit play. So if you would like, you are welcome to do an export animated GIF, and you can drop that straight in to your slides, and then we don't have to hit play. Your choice which file you were submitting. Sometimes I am going to request one file over the other, and we'll talk as we continue why you would want to use one over the other, but for right now, it doesn't necessarily matter. Good luck, have fun.